merciful glance upon me. If you are satisfied with me, then all the wishes of my mind will be attained, and my thirst for happiness will be satiated. If you are satisfied with me, then I will attain the association of Lord Chaitanya. If you are satisfied with me, then I will be able to attain the association of Sri Radha and Krishna. O Master, if you do not become merciful to me, then what will become of me? Please fulfill my mind's desire at least this one time. In the entire world, there is no one as much in need of your mercy as I am. Please be merciful to me and give me shelter at the soles of your lotus feet. Although he spends all his days and nights glorifying the transcendental pastimes and virtues of Sri, Radha and Krishna, Narottam Das knows that his desire to attain their association cannot be fulfilled without your mercy. So, Lokanath Goswami is the guru of Narottam Das Thakur. And so Narottam Das Thakur wants to get the mercy of his guru and is praying for that, to have his merciful glance. And if guru is satisfied, then we will attain Krishna. Yasya prasada bhagavad prasado yasya prasada nagadi kotopi. By the mercy of guru we get Krishna. So he's saying that I am in most need of your mercy. And so we get the mercy of guru by hearing him and following his instructions, and also serving him physically if he's available. Right? You can add, Prabhu.
Yeah. Vani Seva, Vapu Seva. Vapu is there and not there, but Vani is always there. So Vani Seva. Prabhupada met his spiritual master only few times, but he served his Guru Maharaj's instructions. So like that we get the mercy. Okay. Today is also Sanatana Goswami's disappearance day, right? So he was also the guru of all the Brajavasis. So they have a big celebration. And because he used to circumambulate Govardhan Hill, in his memory, today there will be a big Govardhan Parikrama. I heard, I don't know, but that's what they say. That in his memory, they will circumambulate Govardhan Hill. Okay.
Is it fast until noon today, Prabhuji?
No, not on the Vaishnav calendar. Is it on the Vaishnav calendar? I don't know if ISKCON has that on.
I'll check.
It doesn't say that.
Okay. Thank you.
So Sanatana Goswami was very dear to all the Brajvasis. Dhira, dhira, dhira jana, dhira, adhira jana, priya karo. So every time they had any dispute, they would go to Sanatana Goswami and then he would resolve the dispute. That they loved Sanatana Goswami so much that he was like their, very well-wisher and friend. So, okay. Today is also the disappearance of Bhakti Charu Maharaj. So I will read a little bit about him, if it's okay.
Yes.
So there is, I don't know if this book is online, but there is a book called Prabhupada Gata Prana, a lifetime of devotion in the memory of His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj. And many devotees have written, it's 500, how many pages? It's 350 or so, 400 pages almost, book. And different devotees have written their memories of. So I'll read one by, let's see, Radhanath Maharaj, A Lesson of Sweet Surrender. It's a long, let's see how much we can go. It's quite long. Okay, let us offer some moments of prayer and gratitude for His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj. He is the life and soul of so many of our hearts. A person who is one of those rare personal associates of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, and a person who has given his body, his mind, his words, his very soul to be an instrument of Srila Prabhupada's compassion in every possible way to uplift, to care for, to guide helpless people throughout the world. He now, by inconceivable arrangement of the higher powers, has left this world. Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita, the great souls who are engaged in this loving service, they are under my eternal potency, internal potency, my divine potency, because Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj from the very beginning had this connection with Srila Prabhupada. And for every moment, since he has offered in completeness his mind, words, very soul. And Srila Prabhupada would tell us that when one surrenders to the Guru and Krishna, then everything in our life becomes Guru and Krishna's property. And Krishna takes complete control. Ye yatha mam prapadyante. Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj is teaching all his friends and followers how to surrender. And even in this situation, he is teaching us on a very deep level how to surrender. Bhakti Charu Maharaj was born and raised in aristocratic family in Calcutta. He was very highly educated, eloquent in every way, but the perfection of his life he always considered was the opportunity he had to follow in the footsteps of Ishvara Puri. And he had been at Prabhupada's bedside during the closing pastimes of Prabhupada's Leela in the world. He also went inside the pit when Prabhupada's body was lowered in that pit. Bhakti Charu Maharaj was there. You have in the video you see that. And then he said he didn't want to come out. So, of course, they were going to fill the pit after putting Prabhupada's body in Samadhi in a certain position. Then he was supposed to come out and he was not willing. So he had great attachment to Srila Prabhupada. With such a grateful heart, offering such menial service, giving medicine, cleaning Srila Prabhupada's body, cleaning Prabhupada's utensils, revealing his heart to Srila Prabhupada, of his gratitude through his words, his thoughts, and through his active service. For the closing 9 months of Prabhupada's time in the physical world, practically always Bhakti Charu Maharaj was by his bedside, serving with such deep faith. When Srila Prabhupada was physically incapacitated, he was there. Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj made famous a beautiful song, a verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam. This particular verse is from Gopi Geet, the very heart of the heart of Srimad Bhagavatam, the prayers of Gopi's love in separation from Krishna. And it's very special because it is so connected to this pastime of Lord Chaitanya reciprocating with Pratapa Rudra. Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj made this verse so famous through his most heartfelt devotional prayer for singing. And after a certain time, when Maharaj recorded this, wherever I would travel, anywhere in the world, I would hear devotees playing Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj singing this wonderful song. Singing a song which glorifies Srila Prabhupada, who broadcasted this message and revealed himself like Krishna's grace to be the most munificent and also glorify the message of Lord Chaitanya. That was in reciprocation of Trinadapi Sunichena of Pratapa Rudra. Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj was a spiritual seeker, and at a certain time he traveled to the Middle East and to Europe and to Germany to broaden his understanding of the purpose and goal of life. So Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj went to the West, and there he had a realization of the glories of the great treasures and gifts of the spiritual culture of India. He returned to India seeking a spiritual teacher. Sometimes Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj on a personal level would share with me that we were soul brothers in a way, because at exactly the same time in 1970, I was living in the West, traveling over land to India to look for spiritual life, and Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj was traveling west for the same purpose. And of course, I don't remember or recall if we ever physically or personally met, but we both had the same intention at the same time, and he was going west and I was going east, and ultimately he returned to the east. And being such an effulgent and intelligent, sincere seeker of the truth, that wherever he went, the spiritual teachers longed for a person like this. So he traveled, reading books, meeting different gurus and sages and yogis, and at a certain time he was given the Nectar of Devotion, a book by Srila Rupa Goswami, which was translated in summary by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So here's the first book he got. Srila Prabhupada would often tell us, I am in my books. In fact, Srila Prabhupada would give more emphasis to being with him in his books than he would be in Vapu, in physical proximity. So when Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj was reading Nectar of Devotion, he was reading with such eagerness, with such appreciation, and with such faith that directly Srila Prabhupada was personally speaking to him each word. As Srila Prabhupada is speaking to each and every one of us, if we follow in the footsteps of great souls such as Bhakti Charu Maharaj. He accepted Srila Prabhupada as his guru while reading the book. He tells that just after reading the book, he had a wonderful dream of Srila Prabhupada. And he had not met at that point Prabhupada, but he had a dream. And we don't believe it was a dream. We believe it was a divine vision. Srila Prabhupada actually came to him, and at that time he surrendered his body, life, mind, and words to Srila Prabhupada as his guru. He went to Mayapur, Calcutta, and he was so eager to meet Srila Prabhupada. And he found the devotees there in Calcutta and Mayapur. He was engaged in very menial services, hard work, but everything was divine. So Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj, like so many of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, was so grateful for the opportunity to offer any service. He had no rank, no position, he would just serve. When it came to the time of Kumbh Mela in 1977, Bhavananda Prabhu invited Bhakti Charu Maharaj to come with him to meet Srila Prabhupada. And I considered this to be something special because in our Sampradaya, we are all Rupanugas, which means our very purpose in life and the meaning of all our spiritual progress is following in the footsteps of Srila Rupa Goswami. It was at the same time of the year, the month of Magh, that Rupa Goswami met Lord Chaitanya at Prayag. And it was there that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed Rupa Goswami for about 10 days on the banks of the river Ganga, Yamuna and Saraswati. And it was there that Lord Chaitanya gave the seeds of knowledge, wisdom, and grace in which nectar of devotion could be written, and so many other transcendental literatures of Rupa Goswami. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met Rupa Goswami in Prayag and instructed him for 10 days. So here also, Maharaj is drawing a comparison that Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj's first connection through Vani of Prabhupada was reading the nectar of devotion, and his first physical association with Prabhupada was at that same place where Lord Chaitanya spoke, empowered Rupa Goswami to write the nectar of devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It was there at Prayag that Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj had the opportunity to personally hear from Srila Prabhupada, and through the mercy of Vaishnavas connected with him at the Kumbh Mela in a train returning back to Calcutta. This is where Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj was given the most intimate, special, historical services to Srila Prabhupada's heart. The nectar of devotion and the teachings of Lord Chaitanya to Srila Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami were given in Bengali and Sanskrit. Srila Prabhupada lived at Prayag. Too, he had his Prayag pharmacy. In fact, his Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada was given his first and second initiation at Prayag by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur at the Rupanuga Gaudiya Mutt. Srila Prabhupada was initiated by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur in the same place where Rupa Goswami was given the teachings and blessings and mercy by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that is where Srila Bhakti Charu Maharaj had his first physical personal contact with Srila Prabhupada. It was at that time he was given the instructions to translate Srila Prabhupada's books, all of them into Bengali language. Now Srila Prabhupada's books by at that time of 1977 had been translated in many languages in the world, but Bengali was the language Srila Prabhupada owned. It was the language of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda and Gadadhar Pandit and Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur and Bhakti Vinod Thakur and the six Goswamis and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who are all coming from Bengali background. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat are primarily written in Bengali. Srila Prabhupada translated from Sanskrit to Bengali to English. And now for the first time he is asking someone to translate into their original language of Bengali. So the verses are in Bengali and then or Sanskrit, and Prabhupada translated into English and gave purports. Now Prabhupada wanted his purports in English to be translated back into Bengali, and he gave Bhakti Charu Maharaj this service. Srila Prabhupada had just met Srila Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj. He was not even initiated. And yet Srila Prabhupada could see something in him. He could appreciate him in such a special way that he gave him this very intimate personal service, like taking water from the Ganges and offering it back to the Ganges. The literatures from Chaitanya Charitamrita were coming to the world in Bengali, given to the world by Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada is now offering it back to the Bengali language with the loving heart of Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj. Now translating all his books is really a task. All of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Nectar of Devotion, Ishopanishad, all the small books, Bhagavad Gita. Bhakticharu Maharaj immediately accepted this service. He tells how he considers himself totally unqualified, and that's how he felt when Srila Prabhupada saw that his feeling of seeing himself as unqualified was his qualification. Srila Prabhupada told him that if you just do it through your practice, you will learn. But he was saying, you just surrender to my instructions, I will empower you. This dynamic of receiving difficult instructions is so much part of our parampara. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur, the first day he met Prabhupada, they weren't even introduced to one another. At the very first meeting, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur saw something so special in him, and he said, you should take the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and spread it in the English language all over the West. Similarly, when they first met, Srila Prabhupada hardly knew Bhakticharu Maharaj. He is giving this instruction to translate all his books back in Bengali language. He took it as his life and soul, and soon after that, Srila Prabhupada entrusted Bhakticharu Maharaj with a very special service. Srila Prabhupada went to the West to spread Krishna consciousness. But he actually put so much of his time in reawakening Krishna consciousness in India. He had already established the groundbreaking Juhu, Mumbai, Krishna Balram temple in Vrindavan, Chandrodaya Mandir in Mayapur, a temple in Delhi, and so many parts in India. Madras. Srila Prabhupada was really developing things in India, and he was putting his best people in BBT and other places of his projects in India. In India, there were very few educated, serious devotees at that time, and it was mostly people from the West that were serving in his projects. Here is this uninitiated boy that Prabhupada is meeting for the first time in Prayag, Kumbh Mela, and he is giving him not only the service of translating all his books in the sacred language of Bengali, but he gave him the service of being his personal secretary for India, which means going through and helping Srila Prabhupada, answering all letters in all matters of communication all over India. In Mayapur, Prabhupada gave him first and second initiation, and then just a couple of months later, Srila Prabhupada gave Srila Bhakti Charu Maharaj sannyas. Within a matter of months, he took first, second, and sannyas initiations. How is that? Srila Prabhupada saw something so special in him. He gave him all the three initiations. He entrusted Gaur Govind Swami Maharaj to translate all his books into Oriya, another sacred language of our parampara. Srila Prabhupada could see in these great saints something that nobody else could see except Krishna, who they really were. Who could understand where these devotees were coming from? Krishna was sending them. Srila Prabhupada told that devotees like this, his Guru Maharaj and Krishna are sending them to help with his great mission. So Prabhupada said like that, right, in his Vyas Puja offering somewhere to his Guru Maharaj. He says, my Guru Maharaj has sent all of you to help me. Srila Bhakticharu Maharaj was soon given the service of his personal secretary, and this was during the time when Srila Prabhupada was closing his Leela in this world. How simple, how menial, how loving was this devotional service that Srila Bhakticharu Maharaj was offering, and Srila Prabhupada was reciprocating. When they were in Rishikesh, Srila Prabhupada wanted to see if Krishna wanted his health to be restored, and one night, it was some time around midnight. The only people in the dark room were Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhakticharu Swami Maharaj. And Srila Prabhupada revealed something so profound and intimate. We can never understand that. He said to Bhakticharu Maharaj that it is time for him to leave the world. Take me to Vrindavan. He chose to give this message to him. Bhakticharu Maharaj the next morning informed Prabhupada's personal secretary, Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, and brought Srila Prabhupada back to Vrindavan. And it was there that Bhakticharu Maharaj was constantly in service, personal service to Srila Prabhupada. He was translating books into Bengali. He was a general secretary for India, and he was rendering personal service day and night for 9 months. He was at Prabhupada's bedside. How inconceivably dramatic a moment for our hearts. When Srila Prabhupada, in the loving hands of Srimati Radharani and Sri Shyam Sundar, departed from the face of the earth only to make his presence deeper and more tangible in the hearts of sincere devotees who were truly trying to follow his instructions. Bhakticharu Maharaj was only in Prabhupada's association for 9 months, but he had more association than 99% of Srila Prabhupada's disciples. Such an incredible fortune, and his whole life was sharing that fortune he received. That's just who Bhakticharu Maharaj is, what whatever he receives, he wants to share. During those 9 months, he was Srila Prabhupada's cook also. Srila Prabhupada personally taught him so many traditional Bengali recipes, and Srila Prabhupada loved his cooking. Later on, Bhakti Charu Maharaj taught his disciples the same cooking, and it was one of his greatest joys to invite his god brothers and god sisters, and followers and general devotees, and general people to come to his rooms whenever they were in Mayapur and Calcutta, and to the house of his disciples, where he would cook these very recipes. We ate there, right, one time, I think. We went on the quarters of Bhakti Charu Maharaj.
Oh, we do.
You,
Mayapur. Okay.
were you there or you were not there that day?
Yeah, yeah, Mayapur. Yeah, we went, and I think his disciple, what's his name? We met him.
Bhakti Prem Maharaj.
Yeah, Bhakti Prem Maharaj. We had lunch with
Lunch,
him.
yeah, right. Yeah. The first time I ever met Bhakti Charu Maharaj was in 1979. That was the first time. So Maharaj is saying, Radha Maharaj is saying that I met him first time in 1979. That was the first time he came to the United States of America. He wanted to go to preach to serve Srila Prabhupada's various temples in America, and it was the grand opening of Srila Prabhupada's palace in New Vrindavan. And I happened to be traveling in the college towns and preaching. And I came back at that time to New Vrindavan. And when I came back, I went to Prabhupada's palace to have darshan. And in the little kitchen, Bhakti Charu Maharaj was cooking. He would spend hours and hours every day, just all alone, cooking for Srila Prabhupada. And when I met him for the first time, it was just so beautiful, an unforgettable connection. It was in my heart. Here was a person who was so exalted in his service to Srila Prabhupada, his association with Srila Prabhupada, and his very culture, who was born in Prabhupada's birthplace, and he was in the most humble spirit. Just cooking for Srila Prabhupada and putting so much of his heart, his soul in the cooking he was doing to offer to the deity of Srila Prabhupada. And I asked him if I could assist him just by washing the pots. I was a brahmachari at that time. By washing his pots, by cutting his vegetables, cleaning the floors, and any of the menial services I could do to assist him, he was happy to do all of it himself. It kind of seemed that he relished cleaning everything himself and cutting everything himself, but because of his kindness, he allowed me to help, just cleaning up for him. I could see the emotion in each thing he was performing. In his service, everything was with such precision and such care, because he was cooking for Srila Prabhupada, and just as he was cooking for Srila Prabhupada in Rishikesh and Vrindavan and all those places in Srila Prabhupada's physical association. He was cooking for Srila Prabhupada in exactly the same mood as far as I can understand, and in separation to offer to his deity. And during that time he was very quietly cooking, but after the offering was made, which he personally offered himself, I remember he would tell me such beautiful, incredible stories of his relationship with Srila Prabhupada during those last 9 months of Prabhupada's Leela. And it was so special, so sweet. I consider Srila Bhakti Charu Maharaj such an exalted personality and yet at the same time such an intimate friend. It was special. It was a relationship that was quite rare for me, because usually people who are in exalted position or sannyasis or spiritual leaders, I only looked up to them with reverence to serve. For Bhakti Charu Maharaj, not only I feel that, but he made me feel like an equal, like a friend, and a person who could reveal his heart, and I could reveal my heart as God brothers, and that was very special for me to have someone so exalted to be such a friend. Over the years, Bhakti Charu Maharaj continued his translations. He would travel all over the world to many places and be with so many devotees and give so many classes, stories throughout America and throughout Europe, South Africa and Australia and all around India and all other places. But still his translation to Bengali books was always his priority in his life, because it was a direct instruction of Srila Prabhupada. And I believe it was in 1995 that he completed 60 volumes of Srila Prabhupada's books. He had translated into Bengali, and for Srila Prabhupada's centennial in 1996, he offered them to Srila Prabhupada. When he finished that incredible historical service, he wanted to do something to give the people of the world an understanding of who Srila Prabhupada was, so that in whatever language they could have deeper appreciation and a deeper admission to reading Srila Prabhupada's books and interacting with his movement. Srila Bhakti Charu Maharaj is such an incredible and rare soul. He was so deeply traditional and at the same time so profoundly open to connect Srila Prabhupada to the modern day. So, through his culture, he decided he wanted to make a television series on Srila Prabhupada's life called Abhay Charan. And when devotees heard it, it sounded so impossible. It sounded so extraordinary. It is one thing to think about it and to make an entire series, and it's going to be telecast on Indian national television every week. And Sri Bhakti Charu Maharaj did it. His Abhay Charan series with so many episodes were being seen by some of the most prominent people of India who never really understood what our movement was. Even though they had been made life members, but when they saw Abhay Charan serial, they were glued to it and they had their first real understanding of who this Swami Prabhupada was. Because I was preaching in India and I was meeting so many people and prominent people who were favorable, who were friends, but their appreciation for Srila Prabhupada was magnified hundreds and hundreds of times, and so was their eagerness to serve our mission. What to speak of common people? Yes, Bhakti Charu Maharaj Abhay Charan was on Doordarshan, a national television network in India. For several years, the people were glued to seeing what Srila Prabhupada was doing next. I am going to speak something very personal. I am going to speak something else very personal. It is something in the heart of the legacy of Radha Gopinath Temple. ISKCON Chowpatty. Mumbai began in a tiny room. ISKCON Chowpatty began in a tiny room and gradually over the years to be a nice temple with thousands of congregations and many hundreds of brahmacharis. And what happened is that at the beginning, when we started, we were not in ISKCON. Because there is some history, right? Because of New Vrindavan, things happened, and then so Maharaj was also in New Vrindavan at that time. In Kirtananda Maharaj was there, and and what happened is that at the beginning, when we started, we were not in ISKCON, and this is a mystery. And because we are not a body developing within ISKCON, some of the leaders in ISKCON, none of the leaders in ISKCON ever called us, especially the public forum. And it was in 1993, I was sitting in my little room, the same room I have since 1987. I got a phone call, and it was Bhakti Charu Maharaj, who I hadn't seen in about 8 years. And he was so kind, he was so gracious, and I was feeling so lonely for the association of my God brothers. And he asked if he could come to our temple. And I said, yes, please come. So it was a Sunday, and I was giving a Sunday feast lecture in the afternoon, and there were hundreds of devotees filling the room, hundreds and hundreds of devotees filling the room. And right in the middle of the lecture, Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj came through the door, and he started walking through the crowd of devotees who were sitting on the floor. And when I saw him, it was such an emotional experience, because never before in the history of our temple had a senior God brother come. And I got up from the asana, and I was moving through the crowd and the devotees sitting down, and he was moving through, and in the middle of hundreds of people sitting around, we embraced, and we embraced for a long time, and we all felt such a reunion with Srila Prabhupada's movement at that time. And he came and sat on the asana, and he gave the class, and what a wonderful class he gave. He just quelled devotees' reservations about whatever, he just quelled, means he dispelled all devotees' reservation about whatever may have been in the past. That was a major breakthrough in Radha Gopinath Temple's history. When he came to the temple, and many of you who are with us today remember that moment, because it was unforgettable. Srila Bhakti Charu Maharaj, after his talk, we went back into my room and we sat and talked together, just the two of us for many hours, and we were opening our hearts to each other. And he was just so understanding and so encouraging. He was so loving and yet giving such beautiful guidance. And he invited us to come to Mayapur for yatra and stay at the ISKCON Mayapur Chandradoy Mandir. He said, I will make all arrangements for all your devotees. So this was something wonderful going on. We were going to be staying at the ISKCON temple. When we arrived, several hundreds of devotees in Mayapur, Bhakti Charu Maharaj, Jayapataka Maharaj, received us like we had never been received this way before. We were not even in ISKCON at that time. There was so much love. There were such beautiful ceremonies, such respect exchanged that everyone experienced that from Radha Gopinath temple, This is truly our family. This is truly our home, and it's Srila Bhakti Charu Maharaj and His Holiness Jai Pataka Maharaj who made that possible. Their graciousness, their kindness, their love for Srila Prabhupada was manifesting through them to all the devotees. When we would go out on parikrama regularly, His Holiness Jai Pataka Maharaj, Bhakti Charu Maharaj would come out and explain the holy places of Mayapur Dham, and we would come back to the temple and they would arrange such wonderful special prasadam. That is something I'm ever grateful for. And soon after that, Radha Gopinath temple and its branches all came back to Prabhupada's movement, ISKCON. We owe so much to Bhakti Charu Maharaj and His Holiness Jai Pataka Maharaj for that. When I would come to Mayapur for the meetings and for the festivals, when I was made GBC, Bhakti Charu Maharaj so affectionately would always invite me to stay in his room with him. And I remember the first year I was in his room. We would sleep next to each other at night and bathe in the same bathroom, and it was just two of us in the room. And I remember something that affected me so deeply and still does. We would take rest around 9 or 10, and around midnight every night I would hear Bhakti Charu Maharaj in his little office translating Srila Prabhupada's books in Bengali. This is 1994, 1995, 1996. He would be translating from midnight till 4 in the morning and 7 days a week. Such devotion. When did he sleep? I couldn't understand, but I remember every night when I would wake up in the middle of the night and I knew for sure that he would not be sleeping in his bed next to me, but in his little office just behind on his dictaphone, offering Srila Prabhupada's divine words in the Ganga of the Bengali language. He took Srila Prabhupada's instructions to him as his life and soul. Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kuru nandana. Srila Prabhupada would quote Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur that the path of spiritual life really is to take the order of the spiritual master as one's life and soul, to be resolute in purpose. And I could see that, I could feel that, I could hear that it was a very transforming experience. At that particular season, something was growing in Mayapur that in the middle of the night, I had severe asthma attack and I really could not breathe at that time. I did not have appropriate medicines and I was really on the verge of death because I just couldn't breathe due to asthma, due to some allergy reaction. And I remember throughout the whole night, this went on for several nights. Bhakti Charu Maharaj would stay up with me and sit right next to me. And there wasn't much he could do radically because he did not have proper medicines or whatever he had, he would give me. But nothing was working. But he would just be there with me and I would tell him, please go back to your translations. Please go back to taking rest. Don't stay up. There is nothing you could do. And I would be hardly able to breathe and he would just have tears in his eyes. And looking at me with so much compassion, he would say, no, I am here with you. And he would sit with me all night and I understood what is devotee care. We speak about devotee care, but in devotee care we can make many strategies and many policies which are very important. But what really gives life to all these things is that what really gives life to all these things is when we really care. In the core of our heart, when we really care about devotees. And here Bhakti Charu Maharaj, he was a guru, he was a GBC, he was one of Prabhupada's inner circle, intimate associates, and he was sitting beside me the whole night, just praying and chanting for me and trying to help me. I learned so much from that experience. When I think back, it was a challenge, but it was one of those situations where even a great crisis was a reason to grow, and in a sense it helped me. I could see the idea of devotee care. I could see what compassion a Vaishnava has for another Vaishnava, for a fallen soul, what it was really like. And of course, Bhakti Charu Maharaj, either he himself would cook or he would have devotees who he trained in cooking. And every day, if someone visits Mayapur, he would always invite his god brothers and sisters and other devotees to come and join for the most incredible prasadam. This would happen every year. And he insisted that I stay with him every year for all the meetings and all the festivals. Whenever I was in Mayapur, I did it for several years. But then I was thinking that he's extending himself so much that I'm intruding in his life by being here in the same room with him. So I expressed that to him. So he gave me a little room next to his. But then what happened is that when I was in the room next to him, he was always coming to my room, asking what I needed, and I didn't. and I didn't want to be a burden, so I decided to get a simple little room in the Gada building. Bhakti Charu Maharaj, in his transcendental Bengali motherly affection, he seemed so sad. Why are you moving to Gada building? You should stay with me. I said, Maharaj, I need to give you more space. He said, No, no, I want you to stay here. But I remained in the Gada building, but still, how many times he would invite me for lunch prasad and the best prasad. I am remembering His Holiness Gaur Govind Maharaj and how Bhakti Charu Maharaj was so much, in a living way, respecting and honoring Gaur Govind Maharaj. With his realizations at that time, when Gaur Govind Maharaj disappeared from this world on the holy occasion of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's disappearance day in Sri Mayapur Dham, this great Mahabhagavat, Sri Radharani, Sri Radha Madhav, Srila Prabhupada took him away from us on a physical level. And I remember Bhakti Charu Maharaj, Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj, and myself, just a couple of some other devotees. We left Mayapur and we left all the meetings to go to Bhubaneswar for his Samadhi ceremonies. We went by train, and during the train ride, we had such beautiful discussions. Seeing the relationship of Bhakti Charu Maharaj and Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj is something so special to me because they were so close to Srila Prabhupada. Seeing their interactions and feelings, their kindness upon me, and seeing and feeling their profound appreciation for Gaur Govind Maharaj was very special. There, with the followers of Gaur Govind Maharaj, the senior devotees shared their realizations and shared their love in separation of this great Vaishnava. And I am remembering just about 28 hours before Tamal Krishna Goswami was taken from this planet, this world, I was having a discussion with him. We talked for about 4 hours together, just the two of us. So, he's saying Radha Maharaj is talking to Tamal Krishna Maharaj before he left. We walked around. He took me to his room, and I remember towards the end of our discussion, we discussed so many different subjects, Prabhupada, philosophy, state of affairs of ISKCON's future. We discussed a lot of things. And I remember just towards the end, he was telling me what he wants to do in the future. We were sitting in his room at Mayapur. I can picture it now, and he said, after I graduate from Cambridge University with a PhD, I want to start a Vaishnava college, an educational institution for Vaishnavas, and eventually I want to be in Mayapur, but I want to start in Calcutta. Sri Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, I have several Bengali disciples, they are very educated, and they are very surrendered, and I want to do this with Sri Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj. He started to praise Bhakti Charu Maharaj. He said, I love to serve with him. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj is saying. He said, in 1977, we shared the same room in Vrindavan. I was Srila Prabhupada's secretary and he was Prabhupada's personal assistant. We did everything together for Srila Prabhupada and we just served so well together. And he said, even though Bhakti Charu Maharaj is elder than me in age and is coming from true Vaishnava culture of Bengal and is such an advanced devotee, he still sees me as his older brother. Because during those days with Srila Prabhupada in Vrindavan, I was in charge of everything and he was serving under me. Even today, years later, he still sees me as his older brother in Prabhupada's service. So this is Tamal Krishna Maharaj saying about Bhakti Charu Maharaj. And he was expressing to me with so much feeling, I love to serve with him and he's such a perfect person to serve with me, to establish this university. He's from Calcutta, he's Bengali, he's surrendered soul to Srila Prabhupada. And we have such an intimate relationship. This is one of the last things Tamal Krishna Maharaj said to me before he departed, before Srila Prabhupada took him from our physical association. And I am remembering when I was at the bedside of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, surrounded by his personal caretaker, Braj Leela, he would express to me how much love and support he was getting from Bhakti Charu Maharaj. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj would speak with such reverence, such love for Bhakti Charu Maharaj. And during the last weeks, and after Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj departed from the world, Bhakti Charu Maharaj was so much attentive to take care, to protect the devotees in their loving service to Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. When we speak about devotee care, Bhakti Charu Maharaj becomes very much present in my mind and in my heart. A place where Krishna, Balram and Sudama were educated in arts, crafts, knowledge, in Sandipani Museum, Ujjain, and Bhakti Charu Maharaj was inspired to start a project there. It is really incredible. It is one of the places of Kumbh Mela. It is one of the holiest places, Avanti Desh, according to the holy scriptures. But there was nothing really practically happening there in ISKCON. But Bhakti Charu Maharaj, he built connections with people there, and he decided to build one of the most beautiful major temples in all of ISKCON, and he did it. I believe within about 10 months, that beautiful marble temple with exquisite deities, a guest house, and everything was complete. Everything was designed and executed in such an artistic, perfectional way. Bhakti Charu Maharaj was made the Minister of Culture for Srila Prabhupada's worldwide movement, and what culture he exhibited in his life, and what culture he exhibits through his disciples in whatever he does. In Ujjain, he wanted to share so much with the devotees. He created the first and best Ayurvedic center in ISKCON. He was inviting devotees to come all over the world for health treatment, and is developing so many crafts, making Prabhupada murtis, making murtis of the parampara, making vyasasans. I know he travels all over the world, but I would like to express some of my profound appreciations of some of the places I would regularly meet him. I would meet him in London. The effect that Bhakti Charu Maharaj has in London is profound. Shruti Dharma Prabhu, who just this year has departed, one of the best well wishing friends I ever had in my life, so mature, so self realized, so dedicated, so humble, so kind, and how much inspiration he would take from Bhakti Charu Maharaj. He was constantly in contact with Bhakti Charu Maharaj, and Bhakti Charu Maharaj, along with Gauri Das and Shruti Dharma Prabhu, how much they would have projects and programs and cultivate people in London. Okay, so like that goes on. So there are some devotees who left the movement after Prabhupada's departure. Many of the most surrendered and dedicated devotees in London are disciples of or followers of Bhakti Charu Maharaj. Shruti Dharma Prabhu was certainly a Siksha disciple of Bhakti Charu Maharaj. Hari Vansha, there are so many devotees, I cannot speak about them. But I would like to speak about those who have departed. Hari Vansha Prabhu, one of the most prominent devotees, instrumental in spreading Krishna consciousness, who left us a few years ago, was a completely surrendered soul to Bhakti Charu Maharaj. Rameshwar Prabhu, who left us earlier this year from coronavirus, he was one of the leaders of so many of the projects in London. He was very famous for his loving association. Okay, so there is something about Sanatana Goswami. Today, Bhakti Charu Maharaj departed from this world on the occasion of Guru Purnima, on the occasion of disappearance day of Srila Sanatana Goswami. Sanatana Goswami is the Sambandha Murti of our Sampradaya, the Guru who teaches us how to connect with Krishna through loving devotional service. Sanatana Goswami is especially known and loved for being kind to everyone. When he was living in Vrindavan, he would travel from village to village on foot, and he was the best friend of all the Vrajvasis. He was on every level of their lives, their occupation, their families, their spiritual connections, their health. He was concerned about them, and in this way he inspired such faith and love for Vaishnava through such faith and love in Krishna. Sanatana Goswami, when he departed from the world at Chakleshwar Mahadev temple near Govardhan on this day, was the total devastation to the entire Rajvasi community of Rajbhumi. Bhakti Charu Maharaj imbibed so much the mood of Srila Sanatana Goswami. He was scholarly, completely devoted, 100% to his Guru, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Sanatana Goswami was completely devoted and very scholarly. Okay, so like that goes on. Okay, so this is a book on Prabhupada Gata Prana in memory of His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj. So I was reading Radhanath Maharaj's offering. So there is long offering, but I just read a few pages. Okay, so we'll read Srimad Bhagavatam or any pastime you want to share. Share.
That's okay, Prabhu.
Huh?
We can read Bhagavad.
Yeah, we'll read one or two verses. Okay. So Okay, we'll read this verse. The the blessed Lord, Shiva becomes all the more blessed by bearing on his head the holy waters of the Ganges, which has its source in the water that washed the Lord's lotus feet. The Lord's feet act like thunderbolts, hurled to shatter the mountain of sin stored in the mind of the meditating devotee. So when we meditate on the Lord's lotus feet, it shatters our mountains of sin that are stored in the mind of meditating devotee. One should therefore meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord for a long time. So by remembering the Lord, we become purified, both internally and externally. Om Pavitro Pavitro Va Sarvavastam Gatopi. So anybody who remembers the lotus-eyed Lord becomes purified both internally and externally. So in our heart, Sada Hridaya Kandare Suratuva Sachinandana. In the innermost chambers of our heart should be the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yes. And that's Radha Krishna, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahi Anya. So Radha and Krishna have combined as Lord Chaitanya. So in the innermost chambers of our heart should be Lord Chaitanya, Radha Krishna, like that. And Radha Krishna means all their associates also. So all the Krishna's, all the other gopis, Krishna's cowherd friends, Krishna's parents, the whole spiritual world. In this verse, the position of Lord Shiva is specifically mentioned. So Lord Shiva is holding on his head the waters of the Ganges. The impersonalists suggest that the absolute truth has no form and that one can therefore equally imagine the form of Vishnu or Lord Shiva or the goddess Durga or their son Ganesh. So they do pancha upasana. So they say actually the Lord has no form, but they imagine they can worship these 5 deities. But actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Supreme Master of everyone. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi 5.142, it is said, Ekala Ishvara Krishna Arasa Bhritya. The Supreme Lord is Krishna and everyone else, including Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, not to mention other demigods, is a servant of Krishna. The same principle is described here. So we should not think that they are all manifestations of the same God. Yeah, they are Krishna's energy only. Everything is Krishna's expansion, but they are not Vishnu Tattva. Lord Shiva and Brahma is a Jiva Tattva and Shiva is Shiva Tattva, and they are different. They are inferior to Vishnu Tattva. Ekala Ishwar Krishna Arsa Bhritya. So we have the second offense. To consider the names of demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. So if you think, yeah, it's all the same, then it's an offense. The same principle is described here. Lord Shiva is important because he is holding on his head the holy Ganges water, which has its origin in the foot wash of Lord Vishnu. In the Brahma Samhita, it is described who is Lord Shiva. Chiram Yathi Dadha Vikara Vishesha Yogat. How milk is transformed into curd, vikar. It curdles, or whatever the word is. It transforms into curd. Similarly, Krishna, for the purpose of dealing with this material world, has transformed into Lord Shiva. But still, they are not the same. In Hari Bhakti Vilas by Sanatan Goswami, it is said that anyone who puts the Supreme Lord and the demigods, including Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, on the same level at once becomes a Pashandi or atheist. We should never consider that Supreme Lord Vishnu and the demigods are on an equal footing. So we don't disrespect, we respect, we worship the demigod. We not worship, we pray to the demigods. Lord Shiva, you can pray for devotion to Vishnu, Krishna. Another significant point of this verse is that the mind of the conditioned soul, or we can even worship Lord Shiva with this idea of getting devotion to Krishna. Another significant point of this verse is that the mind of the conditioned soul, on account of its association with material energy from time immemorial, contains heaps of dirt in the form of desires to lord it over material nature. So we have accumulated so much dirt in our heart from going through, being around in this material world for such a long time. This dirt is like a mountain. So it's a huge pile of unearthers. But a mountain can be shattered when hit by a thunderbolt. Meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord acts like a thunderbolt on the mountain of dirt in the mind of the yogi. If a yogi wants to shatter the mountain of dirt in his mind, he should concentrate on the lotus feet of the Lord and not imagine something void or impersonal. So this is a remedy. Here it is described to clear out unearthas, is to meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord. Because the dirt has accumulated like a solid mountain, one must meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord for quite a long time. Because the mountain is huge and very strong. So to destroy it, one should meditate on Krishna's lotus feet for a long time. For one who is accustomed to thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord constantly, however, it is a different matter. The devotees are so fixed on the lotus feet of the Lord that they do not think of anything else. Those who practice the yoga system must meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord for a long time, and after following the regulative principles and thereby controlling the senses. It is specifically mentioned here, Bhagavatas Charnaravindam. One has to think of the lotus feet of the Lord. The Mayavadis imagine that one can think of the lotus feet of Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma or Goddess Durga to achieve liberation, but this is not so. Bhagavata is specifically mentioned. Like Lord Shiva says, Mukti Pradata Sarvesham Vishnu Revana Sanshaya. There is no doubt that Vishnu is the deliverer of everyone. Another significant phrase in this verse is Shiva Shivobhut. By his constitutional position, Lord Shiva is always great and auspicious, but since he has accepted on his head the Ganges water which emanated from the lotus feet of the Lord, he has become even more auspicious and important. The stress is on the lotus feet of the Lord. A relationship with the lotus feet of the Lord can never enhance the importance of Lord Shiva, can even enhance the importance of Lord Shiva, what to speak of other ordinary living entities. So when we take Charnamrita, all these things, that we become glorious by taking Charnamrita, the water that has washed the feet of the Lord. So even Lord Shiva takes, when we drink Charnamrita or we put on our head. So we drink Ganga water, right? That's Charnamrita of Vishnu, lotus feet. And we become purified. Or the Vraj Raj. The Vraj Raj is also Krishna's lotus feet, and the devotees' lotus feet have touched the soil of Vraj. And then we take that dust and put on our head like that. Or eat a little. Okay, that's very purifying. So it enhances even the reputation of Lord Shiva because he has taken Ganga on his head. When Vamandev pierced, I think it was Brahma's, the causal ocean water also. There are three things, right? It is described. Causal ocean water came. Brahma saw that feet and he threw his Kamandalu. It's also water from the Kamandalu of Lord Brahma that he washed Vamandev's feet, and that also came down. So, okay. So we can stop here. It's 8 o'clock. Since I have to go do some service at the time. Okay. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Anybody like to come? They can join here. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.